Ethan Clarke sat in the dim light of the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound keeping him company. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick and sticky, like everything in Charleston after dusk. A half-empty glass of bourbon rested near his hand. He checked his phone again. No message. He thought about calling her. But what would he say? "Where are you?" Sounded desperate. "Who are you with?" Sounded paranoid. So, instead, he just waited. At 9:36, headlights flashed through the kitchen window. The familiar sound of Olivia's SUV pulling into the driveway made his stomach twist. She walked in moments later, hair slightly messy, cheeks flushed, perfume heavy. "Hey," she said lightly, hanging her purse on the chair. "Sorry I'm late. Claire and I lost track of time." Ethan watched her closely. "Claire?" "Yeah. From the agency." He nodded slowly. "You said you were meeting Madison." There was a tiny pause, just half a second, but he saw it. Her lips pressed together, and she smiled too quickly. "Oh, right. Madison came later." He didn't push. Not yet. Instead, he stood, kissed her forehead gently, and said, "You smell nice." That perfume again. The one he didn't recognize. Over the next few weeks, the house felt different. Olivia's phone was always face down on the counter. She started working weekends, showing luxury listings on Kiowa Island. Ethan tried to be supportive. He'd always been the kind of husband who gave space, who believed in trust. But trust felt thinner now. Fragile, like the surface of a pond before a stone hits it. One Sunday morning, while Olivia was meeting a client, Ethan drove out toward Kiowa himself. He didn't plan to, he told himself he was just going for a drive, but somehow, his truck ended up there. He parked near a small cafe, one they used to visit on lazy weekends. And that's when he saw her car. Parked near the back. He waited. 15 minutes later, Olivia appeared, not alone. A tall man, maybe mid-30s, well-dressed, hand on her lower back as they walked toward the cafe. She laughed, that same laugh she hadn't given Ethan in months. The man leaned close, whispered something. Olivia touched his arm. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He didn't confront her. He couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he sat in his truck for nearly an hour, staring at nothing, until the sky turned gold and orange with the setting sun. He drove home without remembering a single turn. That night, when Olivia returned, she looked radiant, eyes bright, cheeks flushed. "Busy day?" he asked quietly. "Yeah," she said. "2 showings, both serious buyers. Might close by next week." He smiled faintly. "That's great." Inside, he was breaking. At 2 a.m., while she slept, he sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her social media. Nothing suspicious. Olivia was too careful. But when he checked her business email, one she'd logged in on their shared laptop, he found a message thread. Subject, Charleston waterfront property. But the conversation wasn't about real estate. It was about weekend plans. About missing her smile. The sender, Nathan Cole. He Googled the name. A developer. Recently moved from Atlanta. Partnered with Olivia's firm. Divorced, no kids. The kind of man who probably saw in Olivia what Ethan had taken for granted: beauty, confidence, warmth. He closed the laptop and stared at the wall until morning. For days, Ethan carried the knowledge like a weight. At work, his crew noticed he was distracted. At home, he went through the motions: dinner, small talk, empty smiles. Until one evening, he decided to know for sure. He left work early and drove to her office downtown. Parked across the street. Watched. At 6:47, Olivia walked out with Nathan. They lingered by her car, talking closely. Then she looked around, quick, nervous, before he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't long, but it was real. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. Ethan sat frozen behind the wheel. His chest hurt, but not from shock. From confirmation. That night, he didn't speak. Didn't eat. Just lay beside her in bed, listening to her soft breathing, knowing that between them was a canyon no love could cross. 2 nights later, he cooked dinner, her favorite. Candles, wine, everything perfect. Olivia seemed pleasantly surprised. "This is sweet," she said, smiling. "What's the occasion?" He looked at her for a long time before answering. "I just wanted to have dinner with my wife." They ate. They talked, surface-level things. Weather, work, neighbors. The calm before a storm. When she poured another glass of wine, he said quietly, "So, how's Nathan?" The name dropped like a knife. Olivia froze. Her hand trembled slightly. "Who?" "Don't," he said softly. "Please. Not tonight." Her lips parted, but no words came. He continued, "I saw you. Kiowa. The cafe. The kiss outside your office. The emails." Tears welled in her eyes. "Ethan, He stood, voice breaking. "How long?" 6 months, she whispered. He closed his eyes. The sound of it, 6 months, seemed to echo through the room. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, crying now. "It just did. You were distant, always tired, and Nathan." He slammed his hand against the table. "Don't you dare make this about me." She flinched. Silence followed. The kind that feels endless. Finally, he said quietly, "I loved you more than my own damn life, Olivia." And then he walked out. For the next week, they barely spoke. Ethan slept on the couch, Olivia moved her things into the guest room. She kept trying to talk, but he wouldn't answer. Then one morning, she found divorce papers on the kitchen counter. He'd already signed his part. When she read the note beside them, her tears fell onto the page. "You chose him. I'm choosing peace." She signed 2 days later. A month later, Ethan moved out of Charleston. He took a job in Asheville, North Carolina, quieter, surrounded by mountains, far from the ghosts of what had been. Sometimes, late at night, he thought about her. About the way her laughter used to fill their kitchen. About how love can rot from the inside when no one notices. Olivia sold the house soon after. Word around town said Nathan didn't stay long, the affair ended once it had no danger left to feed on. She kept working. Smiling. Pretending. But every spring, when the magnolia tree outside their old house bloomed white and pure, she'd drive by and stop for a moment. And she'd remember the man who once waited for her at the table, patient, loyal, and blind to how easily love can be betrayed. Ethan never remarried. But he learned to forgive, not her, but himself. He realized that some endings aren't punishments. They're corrections. And in Charleston, beneath the magnolia trees, another couple moved into that same house. Another husband, another wife, blissfully unaware of the ghosts that lingered in its walls. Because love doesn't die there. It just waits. Charleston looked different to Olivia now. The streets she once loved, the pastel houses, the cobblestone alleys, the lazy charm of the waterfront, all carried ghosts of him. She'd passed by their old house only twice since selling it. Both times she stopped the car a block away and watched from a distance, heart beating too fast. A young couple lived there now. She'd seen them once, laughing as they planted flowers under the magnolia tree Ethan had once trimmed every spring. That tree had been his pride. Strong roots, he'd said once, brushing the bark with his hand. Even storms can't shake it. Now, she couldn't look at it without crying. Olivia still wore her wedding ring sometimes. Not because she hoped he'd come back, she knew he wouldn't, but because the absence of it made her finger feel too bare, too guilty. Nathan was gone. He'd moved back to Atlanta less than 3 months after the divorce. No dramatic goodbye, no closure. Just a text that said, "I can't do this anymore." She couldn't blame him. What they'd built was born out of shadows. And shadows, she learned, never last under daylight. Up in Asheville, North Carolina, Ethan had found something close to peace. The mountains suited him. He rented a small cabin overlooking a valley where fog rolled in like waves each morning. He fixed things, worked long hours on new construction sites, and avoided conversations about his past. People liked him, quiet, dependable, the kind of man who always finished what he started. But inside, he still felt half alive. Every morning, he made coffee for 2. Habit. Every evening, he poured 1 glass of bourbon, not 2. Deliberate. Sometimes, he thought about calling Olivia, not to forgive, but to understand. Other times, he hated himself for still caring at all. One rainy afternoon, a letter arrived at Ethan's mailbox. No return address, just his name written in neat, familiar handwriting. He didn't open it at first. Let it sit on the kitchen counter for hours, untouched. But as thunder rolled through the valley, curiosity won. "Ethan. I don't expect you to read this. I just needed to write it. There isn't a day I don't regret what I did. Not because I lost you. But because I lost the version of myself that was worthy of you. Nathan is gone. And I've learned that loneliness doesn't start when you're alone, it starts when you betray the person who would have forgiven you. If I could go back, I'd have told you how tired I was instead of pretending I was fine. I would have asked you to see me, instead of hiding behind another man's attention. I know you'll never come back. You shouldn't. But I hope, wherever you are, you've found peace. Olivia." He folded the letter slowly, his hands trembling just a little. For a long time, he just stared out the window, the magnolia trees in his memory swaying in silent forgiveness. Then he lit a match and burned the letter in the sink, not out of anger, but release. When the last bit of paper turned to ash, he whispered softly. "Goodbye, Liv." 2 years later, fate did what time couldn't, it crossed their paths again. Ethan came back to Charleston briefly to attend a friend's wedding. The ceremony was in the historic district, at a small chapel near the water. When he stepped inside, the music paused, and his heart stopped for a beat. Olivia was there. Not as a guest. As the wedding planner. She froze when she saw him, clipboard in hand, her breath catching. "Ethan," she whispered. He nodded once. "Hi, Liv." For a moment, the noise of the world vanished. It was just them, surrounded by flowers, sunlight, and ghosts. They spoke later that evening, after the ceremony ended. She told him about her work, how she'd started her own event business. He told her about the mountains. About how peace, he'd learned, isn't silence, it's acceptance. Before parting, she asked quietly, "Do you ever think about us?" "Every day," he said honestly. But not with anger anymore. Her eyes softened. "I'm glad." Then he smiled, small, gentle. "You look happy, Olivia." "I'm trying to be," she said. "That's something." And then, as the magnolia blossoms drifted down from a nearby tree, they walked away from each other for the last time, not with bitterness, but with something like grace. Years later, when Ethan finally remarried, a kind, quiet woman who loved the same things he did, he still remembered Olivia sometimes. Not with longing, but with gratitude. Because loving her, losing her, and forgiving her had shaped him into a man capable of starting over. And in Charleston, Olivia kept that old magnolia tree alive. Every spring, she'd visit, place a single flower beneath it, and whisper. "I hope you're happy, Ethan. Some wounds never close." But some turn into stories, lessons carved into the heart like names on old wood. And in the still heat of the Charleston evening, beneath that wide magnolia sky, two souls once broken by betrayal found peace in the simplest truth of all. Love can end. But kindness can still remain.